The BOOcast synth of the month is the DSI OB-6. So, as a teenager, I always thought of Oberheims as huge, overblown, over-expensive synths for hair and spandex rock bands. Van Halen was not my bag. I preferred Japan, and they used sequential circuit synths, right? And boy, did I want a Prophet 5. Spool forward to 2015 or thereabouts, and we're invited to our good friend Simon Forsyth's barbecue, which involved eating sausages and having a very lovely rummage around his impressive collection of old synths. Standing gleaming in the collection was his original Oberheim 2 voice, and we made a beeline for it, and its sound, primarily of its amazing filter, blew us away. My teenage self stood corrected. I also found out that day that yes, Japan used Oberheims too. The OB-6, released in 2016, was the first collaboration between Dave Smith of Sequential and Tom Oberheim, with Tom designing the 6 voice cards and Dave slotting them into what is basically the chassis of the Prophet 6. We surprised even ourselves when, given the choice between a Prophet, the synth I had desired since I was 12, and the OB-6, we decided on the OB. But did we make the right choice? Okay, let's have a look. So we've got 2 oscillators, a mixer with a sub-oscillator in there, and a noise, a filter, a very special filter, 2 envelopes, one for amplitude and one for the filter modulation and other modulations. Pan spread, spreads the voices around, program volume into the preset. And over here we have one solitary, lonely little LFO with lots of destinations, which we'll come to. The cross mod section, which is sort of taken from the Prophet series of synthesizers, and some aftertouch amount. Transpose, hold, portamento, and detune, which we'll come to again. And all the presets are in here. There are 1,000 presets inside the synth, 500 of which are user definable. And the right globals button, and we've got all the MIDI controls and all the other gubbins up here. So let's have a look at the oscillators, and what I'm going to do is initialize a patch. So we press manual and tap right, and that gives us, with this oscillator, all the way to the left is a sawtooth, but we can slowly morph it into a square or a pulse wave, and we have pulse width control, which goes to around 90%, 50 in the middle, and all the way through 0 all the way at the end. And it kind of still works when you're morphed in that region there. If you can hear that, you just get a little bit. Oh, it's still working. Yeah, I didn't even know that. So when it's all the way to sawtooth, you get nothing from the pulse width control. But when you're over here, even slightly, there's some mangulation going on. That's amazing. And we've got frequency control, which is coarse. So we've got, I think the standard place to put it is in C. VCO2 is sort of the same, except we start from a triangle wave, morphing into a saw, and then into a pulse. Again with the same deal with the pulse width modulation there. Oh, you can hear that. Again, we can tune it coarse like this in semitones, but we've also got plus and minus the semitone on the fine tune. Oscillator 1 also has sync, which at first I was a bit confused because you've only got this kind of coarse tuning of the sync. Let's turn the oscillator up again. So you can't do that. It's
quite interesting. It sounds like talking. But the yeah, I've always thought, well, why is it tuned like that? It's really odd. But of course, you can attach the pitch of VCO1 to the envelope over here. So there we go. So we can get all that stuff. There's no way of putting VCO1 on its own into the pitch wheel. So you can't do that by hand. A slight limitation perhaps. So also with the oscillators, we've got a sub-oscillator here, which is tied to VCO1. And unlike on the Prophet 6, this is a square wave. So it's a little bit beefier of a sub than the Prophet. Interesting thing that happens, because the sub-oscillator is tied to VCO1, when you put VCO1 into sync, if you can hear that, what happens is, so I change the frequency of VCO1 and it's in sync, the sub-oscillator is kind of latching onto different notes inside it, which is quite... At first I thought, well, why is the sub-oscillator not attached to VCO2, where the more subtle tuning is? But this is quite interesting, because you... Let's see if I can make a sound that actually uses that. So I've just made this sound very quickly. We've got... So the filter envelope is controlling the pitch of VCO1. It's been synced to VCO2. Now if I bring up the sub-oscillator, you hear it's... The sub-oscillator is kind of fighting to hear what frequency VCO1's going at, and it's sort of changing its mind halfway through, which is quite... So that's pretty useful, isn't it? So here's a little sound that utilises that effect of the sub-oscillator trying to latch on to what frequency VCO1's at when it's going through sync. So you can hear that it's even went to a fifth there, I think. There's no filter modulation going on here. This is all the sub-oscillator jumping around. The synced VCO1 isn't just good for, well, obviously the sync sounds and that kind of strange special effect kind of thing happening with the sub-oscillator jumping around. Here's this rather nice piano sound which I've made. Bring up the amount of velocity. Bring down the volume a little bit. So let's look at the filter. This is the thing that really made us choose this over the Prophet 6. And I wanted a Prophet my entire life. And it's a recreation of the filter on the original SEM module. And it's state variable, and you can sweep it from low pass through notch to high pass. It's got a nice resonance. It's 12 dB. It doesn't self-oscillate, but as you'll hear, it has a pretty special quality. So. Now, I'm not saying this is identical to the original SEM filter that I heard that Simon let me hear. The thing that basically brought tears to my eyes. But it's close. So there's the low pass. Let's go through and let's take off all the effects. That's low resonance. But you can hear that there's something going on there. And here's full resonance on low pass. Now even on that fairly pedestrian sort of thing there, I hope you can hear there's something about this filter. And what I'm going to do here is just boost it up into the notch region. And by the way, this is something you can't do with the OB-6 because it's switchable. You can switch between low pass, notch and high pass, but you can't do that. Bring up the resonance. Slightly into high. Okay, have you listened to those harmonics as they drop down? Just sounds to me like a billion tiny little bells being rung as it drifts down the frequencies. Another thing I'll say for this is that everything's on the front. You don't have to go into any page 2 buttons and going to anywhere to change it. We can do bandpass as well. So while we're on the filter over here, let's have a look at the X mod. So this is the bit that we've kind of stolen from the Prophet series of synths. So we can let's do the LFO first. So the LFO is pretty good. There's only one of them though, but we got a choice of waveforms. Let's modulate VCO1 pitch, VCO2 pitch, or both, pulse width for 1 or 2 or both, amplitude, filter frequency, that's the cutoff, and filter mode, which is this. You can modulate this knob. There's only one LFO, so but at least the square is unipolar, so it's very easy to get the tuning like that. So that's the LFO, but over to cross mod. So here we get to choose between the filter envelope and VCO2 doing some modulating. So we can modulate VCO1 with VCO2. Let's just hear that on its own. But it's synced. And here you get really interesting. You can change the waveform of VCO2. All kinds of stuff going on there. Also adjust the shape of one, so that can work with the envelope too. We put it into sync. Oh, another thing I forgot to do is we've got all these waveforms for LFO1. If you choose the random and go up to higher speed, it becomes noise. So we can use all the things together. As you see, I haven't put any thought into the sound at all. So there's a sequencer which is polyphonic and it's up to 64 steps. So and there you go. Leaving your hands free to do whatever you want. While we're on here, let's look at the effects. So we've got 2 effect slots. We'll look at effect slot A first. So off is one of the effects, how useful. Bucket brigade delay, which can be clock synced. Digital delay, which ditto can be synced. Chorus, I think that can be synced. Phaser can be synced. The ring mod. So we can have it working on its own freely like that. Also the levels are here. Let's bring it right up. Totally mess it up. Or if you flick this on, the ring modulator follows the highest note that's being played. It's pretty useful. Just add a little bit of mess in there. Let's keep that. I'll have a look through. So we've also got the ring mod, the flanges, and that's it. Let's stay with the ring. On number 2, we have bucket brigade delay. Again, we also have a digital delay, chorus, phaser 2, phaser 3, ring mod, flanger. But we've also got a hall reverb, a room reverb, plate reverb, and a spring reverb. One of the many Easter eggs in this synth is the the spring reverb. If you turn it right up full. Just stop that. Now I don't know why they bothered doing this, but you know, you can pretend you've actually got a real spring inside your OB-6 if you really want to. Whoopee! So there it is in its little blue pinstripe suit. Isn't it lovely? You see how quick and easy it is to change the sounds. It's just... Anyway, so yeah, the original OB-6 firmware came with a detune which was very, very wide and wasn't entirely usable. And they brought in a firmware update which introduced MPE control, so you can do polyphonic aftertouch on it with an MPE controller. They also souped up the detune knob to make it closer to the vintage knob on the Prophet 5 reissue. And what it does is it takes each of the 6 voice cards and sort of gradually spreads them out. And it seems to be a sort of preset, predetermined detuning area. But it not only does it detune them to different degrees per card, it also messes with the filter settings, so they get a bit spread as well. And also the envelope settings get a bit spread. So you get a general sense of a sort of a synth that's getting old. Each of those notes has got a different filter setting, but the detune is much less broad and insane than it was. There is a lot of chorus on here. Hopefully you'll be able to hear. You can hear that messing up as the detune goes in. We press unison as well. So unison we can get up to 6. So yeah, it's great. So what it does is basically knocks all of those individual 6 SEM style synth cards which are inside this thing off slightly. So there it is. There's one LFO, bit of a limitation. There's only one initial amount knob for all of these features with the one LFO, which can be a limitation. It's like sometimes you just want a little bit less vibrato going on, but a lot more pulse width modulation going on. And you can't do that because it's all one knob. It's a bit of a limitation. Another thing which I've often thought, God, wouldn't it be great if they did this? Is remember, we've got 6 individual monophonic SEM style synths in here. Wouldn't it be great if they made it possible for you to split them? And so have the first 2 do one sound and the second 2 do another sound. And the third one could be used for extra LFO duties or extra modulation duties or something. Basically, you'd be like building an old style 2-voice synth, like built out of 2 SEMs. You could sort of pretend you've got 2 SEMs in here and have that 2-voice architecture going on. Surely there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do that. Oh, come on, that'd be so good. And plus you'd be able to split the keyboard. Okay, you'd only get 2-note polyphony per sound, but that'd be Oh, God, that'd be lovely. I think one of the defining characteristics of the OB-6 is how organic you can get it to sound. So check out this fake mellotron sound. Not bad, eh? To stay in this realm of organic sounding sort of things. So trying to get this sort of junk shop harmonium in the rain type of sound. Using the LFO, which is modulating the pulse width here to give it that sort of the feeling that you've got your feet on the pedals. And there's a little bit of loudness on the aftertouch. Also went through a period of very much using the effects as a way of building the sound. So yeah, obviously the timed delay with the clocked LFOs. Another great thing to do is to use the cross mod or the X mod, and using VCO2 to modulate VCO1, you get those classic Japan style ghosts, bells, you know. So I went through a period of using the digital delay with lots of extra feedback, tuned really short to get these ringing sounds. And you can tune it with the delay here, so. Also using the sequencer or the arpeggiator, get some really nice rhythmic sounds there. So we've got timed LFOs, timed bucket brigade delay. I use this sequencer all the time because it's synced to the LFO and it's synced to the effects, and you've got this lots of control over what's going on. Can't remember what this was for. Maybe I never used it, but. So yeah, we've got all that stuff going on there. There's a ring mod, there's a bit of reverb. The LFO's been synced in, and 8th triplets, oh dear. And yeah, it's a good sound, isn't it? So there we go, that's the OB-6. It's a lot cheaper than the OB-X8. There we go. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.